Spooky Tuesday.
Drellin, are you scared of this place?
No. Scared of nothing here. It's just that, some places are like people. Some shine and some don't. I guess you could say the Overlook Hotel here has something about it that's like shining.
Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky Tuesday, a weekly podcast where we're breaking down all of our favorite slashers, thrillers, monster movies, and black comedies on the new scariest day of the week. I'm Sydney Thompson.
I'm Monica Height.
And I'm Chelsea Duff.
And this week, the last week of a year that was 2021, that who's to say if it was a good year or not? Who's to
Who
truly
can say?
Not
Jury's
me.
out, baby. Jury is out.
But on this, the last Spooky Tuesday of the year, we are bringing you a movie that is my baby. I birthed this.
Oh, wow.
I did.
You're older than I thought you were.
Congratulations.
No. I'm still the same
Spiritually.
age. This movie is way older than me. Well, it
And she's
came
been
out
here forever and ever and ever.
ever.
And
She's
ever.
always been here.
She's always been there.
It's always been her baby.
It's always been her baby.
And I will always come back to my baby. That is Stanley Kubrick's and Stephen King's The Shining.
Can you really say that it's both of theirs in one
Oh, no.
sentence when they hate each other over this
They
movie
wanna-
so
No.
much?
Fucking fight.
No, Stephen King would definitely still throw hands if Stanley Kubrick was alive still
Uh-huh.
to fight about it. And part of that makes me, I love this movie even more. And one thing that I didn't realize is there's a mini series.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
did a
Haven't seen it,
miniseries.
but have heard about it.
I've never
When
known
did
about
it
it,
come out?
but it is
97, I think.
but it
Stephen
is-
King was like, fuck you, Kubrick. I'm doing my own version.
Oh, I
and
would
it's
love
like
to watch that.
way closer to the book than it is the movie.
Yeah, the movie, I just read the synopsis for the book. That's what I'm bringing to the table
Oh,
today
that's
on
your
Spooky
contribution.
Tuesday.
is
That's
that your
it. That's my
contribution?
contribution.
Amazing.
No understanding of the film, but I did
But
read
you
a
did not show up
Wikipedia
empty-handed.
article on the plot
Right.
of the book. And god damn, it is so fucking different.
It's
It is
so
so different. And like
Yes.
less confusing for me than the movie is.
Well, that's
But I didn't
part
read
of
the
the
whole
thing, I think. Stanley Kubrick about Stephen King's book said like it's not a piece of great literature, but it's got a great plot. And that's all you need to adapt a story is essentially what he said. And then Stephen King about Stanley Kubrick's movie said, it is a beautiful convertible with no engine. So basically they both
True.
are
With the
such
beauty.
bitches about each other.
So
But
funny.
I think part of it is like, you know me, I generally like to have answers and explanations for things. Not necessarily for movies, but I like to have like rules that are regular throughout the movie.
Yes. Yes.
I feel like this is one of those movies that's like kind of an exception because it's one of those things that's supposed to be a little unknown. And I
Mhm.
kind of feel like they were just working within different mediums. And for some reason, neither of them quite got that. You know what I mean? Like something can be really scary when you're reading it and imagining it for yourself and it's in your head. And when you put it on screen, it looks like a giant crab spider at the end of it. And then sometimes things that are really scary in a movie and really haunting in a movie are super annoying in a book because you have to have somebody thinking about it and show their thoughts and the way that they're interacting with it on like an actual textual level. And when you have to analyze it to that degree, you have to be able to explain it, at least on some
Totally.
level, and it falls apart.
Yeah.
So they're just doing different things. And I don't know why neither of them could really get on board that they're completely different beasts, but
This is
whatever.
vaguely a tangent, But like we always talk about how we love horror movies where you never see the scary thing because
Mhm.
like you can have it be whatever you want. And I'm like, oh, that's why people love reading horror books so much, because you don't have to deal with the shitty CGI or weird practical
Right.
effects. It's like in your mind, it could be a really scary spider that's a clown
Mhm.
at the end of it instead of whatever the fuck that was.
Right. And in your mind, the book can just be like, the character was so scared. And you go, yeah, I bet it's scary.
Yeah, I bet
I
it's
bet it's
really
scary.
fucking scary.
If you
I
have
can
a
only
character that's
imagine.
scared, yeah, they can just kind of be an avatar for the reader. If you have a character in a movie that's scared, you still have to create something visually scary.
Scary.
For the viewer.
Very true. Very true.
So,
But so
yeah.
if you, sweet listener, have never seen this masterpiece, the movie, not the book, because I do want to get into a lot of the differences between
Me
them. And we
too,
know
yeah.
Monica
Okay.
is full ready for it.
Medium ready.
So
our for today, though.
I shy away from the term expert.
Monica's an
but anyway,
She's
expert,
our
okay?
professional.
She read all
She
this
is
from the
our
internet, so you know it's
academic.
correct.
on Wikipedia.
What's more than expert? How do we really double down on this?
A professor
Mhm.
on this
She
subject.
has her PhD in the Wikipedia page for
No,
Stephen King's The Shining.
No, I only read it one time.
That's all
Sydney,
you
what
need
were
for
you
your
gonna
PhD.
say that
Everybody
wasn't
knows
about
it's super
me?
easy to get a PhD.
Oh, me? I was just gonna read the IMDb synopsis for the movie,
Sure.
which
sure,
is
do that.
She's got a
Yeah.
PhD in IMDb. So
that I am an expert at reading the IMDb movie
perfect.
summary.
Everybody's bringing something to the
Amazing.
table today.
Hold on.
Incredible.
Let's do a dramatic reading of
Okay.
this
All right.
to end the year.
Yeah. Give
I've
it to me.
had 4 sips of wine. I'm feeling myself. Okay, let's go.
Get it.
Wow.
A family heads to an isolated hotel for the winter, where a sinister presence influences the father into violence, while his psychic son sees horrific forebodings from both past and future.
That was
What was
beautiful,
that?
but the way
What?
that you started with a little
The Shining.
incredible. Great job. Great start.
Thank you.
That-
I am a
It leaves
thespian?
you breathless, the film.
Yes.
So it makes sense that that's what just occurred to you.
My
It set the
shine
tone
was
for the
coming
movie,
through. Okay.
But it also set the tone for us. And
Yes,
that's what we
yes,
needed.
yes.
You played both levels. I love it.
Yeah,
You
no,
know what-
Sydney
you know
had
what
to
it was
tell
giving me?
the
It was
Sydney had to
giving me
tell the-
big.
Just one of you at a time, please.
Never.
I thought she was letting me go, and she thought I was letting her go.
Because you guys are at a stop sign. You guys are at diagonal.
You go,
Come on,
Sydney.
you
You
go.
go.
You go.
No, you go. I'll go.
I'll go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do it. She was just telling the little boy who lives in her mouth to be quiet for a second. She was gonna use her Sydney voice instead of her Tony voice.
Great joke. Worth it.
I was
you.
about to say Miley Cyrus is my Tony because it's giving me big Sha. Sha.
Both love it from both of you. Everyone on the same page. Everyone doing great work today.
It was worth the wait for both of those jokes. Thank God.
And they really came together in the end. And I think that's what's gorgeous about this podcast.
Monica and I were
So
just
excited.
shining to each other to know, like, we were just on that same
We're
vibe,
just
you know?
we just out here shining, you know.
Okay, one thing that I do actually want to talk about is I don't think the movie explains like
Anything?
but like especially The Shining. Like it's named The Shining. Like I want more details about it in this book or in this movie, which I'm sure the book gives.
Yeah.
But like, and I know there is technically a sequel that I've never
Uh-huh.
seen, but it goes more into depth about what The Shining is.
Yeah.
Would you even say though that Doctor Sleep as a movie is a Shining or is a sequel
Well,
to
it's not a
Shining
sequel
the movie?
to the
It's-
movie.
Yeah, it's
No,
just
it's a
an
sequel to
adaptation
the book.
of the
Yeah,
book
it's a sequel of the book. Yeah, it's an adaptation of the sequel to The Shining in book form, but it was a movie and it has Ian McGregor. Is that who that was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it Ewan?
Ewan. I always mumble his first name. Anyway, he's sexy. I watched Doctor Sleep, and by watched I mean I Doctor Sleeped through half of it. I literally got like 30 minutes in.
Great joke.
Thank you so much. I was
You're on a roll today.
Killing it today.
No, but I didn't think about how Stephen King hated the first Shining, the actual Shining movie. And so I didn't remember that, and so I didn't think about how the sequel movie would be completely different in every single fucking way, in tone and everything from what the Shining was. And so I was like, there's a bunch of magic shit going on right now. This is a magic movie. It's about magic, and I love that shit, but I was not ready for that. I was
You
like,
weren't
this is a
prepared.
horror movie. No, like scene 1, there is a beautiful woman. Is Jessica Chastain in that? It might be Jessica Chastain. It could
I've
be
never
someone
seen
else.
it. No
No,
idea.
it's not.
She's
it's
in
not
It
Jes-
Chapter 2.
It's not Jessica Chastain. It's someone else who's beautiful. A beautiful woman is there right at the beginning, and she's wearing a top hat. It's that type of a magic movie. She's wearing a top hat right
Okay,
away.
full magician. Okay.
She went full magician on him, and then that's all I can really remember. I slept through a good deal of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a PhD in Doctor Sleep.
Monica,
Amazing.
you're an expert in the book. So I
Yes.
know that the book is more like an actual supernatural thriller, where the movie is a psychological thriller,
Yes.
basically. And so like in the book, the ghosts that like the hotel in both of them is evil, but the ghosts and like the presence in the hotel in the book are like what is causing. His name is
Yeah.
John in the book.
Ew. What?
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he says, "Here's Johnny," I guess.
No, Jack
No,
Nicholson
that's
improvised
yeah.
that line.
Oh, he just
It's a Johnny
Okay,
Carson
in-
reference.
Jack is a nickname for John sometimes, isn't it? I'm not sure, but it says Jack in the Wikipedia, so that's all I fucking know.
Oh,
So I don't know.
I was reading something where they kept calling him John. So who knows? The internet doesn't lie. Maybe it's both. Maybe they interchange it.
If porque no los dos. But yeah, no,
We will never
thing-
know.
the thing is really interesting, like the idea that I'm getting from
Mhm.
reading this Wikipedia as an expert
From
in
your
the book.
PhD. Yeah.
Yes, from my PhD, is that like the house is haunted. Yes. And you hear Dick, right? That's his name. Dick
Yeah.
telling
Dick Halloran.
Danny
Halloran.
heart Dick.
that some places are like people, and so they can have the Shining too. So I feel like that was his like baby talk way of saying it's like a haunted house and there's mystical things there. But what the book is trying to say to me, this is how I'm interpreting it, and it's not
Mhm.
fact. It seems like the house or the Overlook Hotel is getting more powerful because someone with the Shining is there. Like the fact that Danny is there like enlivens the spirits that are there and activates the haunting even more. And I think that's why it can take the corporeal form that the ghosts seem to be able to take. Also, there is this amazing hold on, let me look up the word that they use. Oh my god, the garden's topiary animals come to life in the book. So like topiary animals.
Topiary the word you were looking for?
Topiary is the word I was looking for. Yeah, I was like, but it's those are like the bush animals, right? Like on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
front of a shell
Hedge animals.
station. Yeah. So like they're alive and they cause a lot of shit.
The maze in the movie, they couldn't, like how you were talking about with the how sometimes it's better on the page than on film. They couldn't get the topiaries. That's not it.
Topiary.
Yeah. To look good. So they just changed it into a giant maze.
Okay, imagine how fucking hokey this would have looked at.
Yeah.
Oh,
a
it
la
would have been
1980.
so bad.
It would
It
have
was
looked
a practical
so
solution.
Yeah, no. And I love
And very
I love the
elegant,
maze.
frankly.
Super
Yeah.
elegant. You know, Adam said something that was really interesting while we were watching this. He was like, I bet that Wes Anderson got a lot of inspiration like from Kubrick because there are so many like gorgeous, perfectly symmetrical shots in this movie. Just reminded me of like the scene where Jack is looking down at the miniature of the maze. And also, can I just say that I love hotels that have miniatures of the entire property? That's just like something
Yes,
that I'm
important.
really into.
Important.
I love it. There's one in Hawaii at this hotel I go to, and it even has like a little whale in the water on the outside.
Gorgeous.
It's very cute. It's very lovely.
This is why Peter Pan is the best ride at Disneyland.
We love a miniature. But yeah, like that scene where it like zooms in onto the maze, like it's just like a hypnotic scene, and then like so many beautiful shots of the architecture in the hotel itself. So I thought that was really interesting little tidbit. I wonder, I'll ask Wes one day, my close personal friend Wes Anderson.
Yeah. Martin Short, Wes Anderson.
Okay, so I guess some of these artistic decisions that he made were for the better, because like if you saw like a fucking like bush unicorn running around fucking with people, I mean, I would love to see it personally, but it would be a little silly.
I would love it if they this movie or like this book series, I think would make an incredible animated series.
Oh
yeah,
I would watch that.
Right?
I would super watch that.
Animation is honestly the answer to a lot of life's tricky adaptation questions.
Yeah, it's like, why is Disney making live action versions of every single cartoon movie? I'm like, please,
let's go the opposite direction.
I want more animation.
And the drawn kind, not the CGI 3D, whatever. I don't even know. I like 2D. 2D is not where it be at for me. I'm so sorry. Goodbye. I'm gonna leave the podcast now.
I just watched the new League of Legends cartoon that's on Netflix. And I will say, whatever that animation style is, it is so visually beautiful.
Okay.
That I would love to see like like a Shining movie done in like that specific type of like animation.
Well, I'm also thinking, what's that one that Devin really likes that we watched over the garden
wall?
Yeah, and that's like very creepy and autumnal and has like some very scary foliage at many a point, and a general sort of like ominous vibe to a lot of it. And I think even something like that could really play to this film's strengths. That said, for what this movie is in terms of like an adaptation, not an adaptation, I do think you lose a lot of the magic element of it. I mean, like the Shining aspect still very much exists, you know what I mean? It's the movie is literally named after it, but I also think people forget about it, and they really don't quite like grasp the role that it plays in the movie if you're not actively watching it. Like those are not always like this. I mean, they are like the red rum, the girls, the blood in the elevator. Those are some of the most like famous moments, but I feel like somehow people, myself included, like intellectually divorce it from the actual like plot reasonings for those shots being included in the film and like what's being communicated to us in those scenes.
Totally, because it's the way that it's played out. It's more like a what the fuck than a magic thing. It's like this is like a series of fucked up events. Like, remember when that guy in the bear suit is sucking a dick?
It's a dog suit.
The furry?
Yeah, I like that part.
Listen, furry representation, okay?
Representation. This film's had furry
vintage furries, 1920s furries,
which is crazy because our friend made me watch a documentary about furries last 4th of July, and I don't remember them mentioning The Shining at all, and I think they should have.
They really fucking should have.
And it's like that scene specifically is really funny because they just don't mention. You just like look at it and you're just like, why is there a man in a dog suit sucking off another dude? But apparently in the book they tell you
why not
they tell you why man in dog suit sucking dick.
That is not in the description that I saw.
Okay, we're gonna need a more extensive Wikipedia page. Somebody go on there, make some edits so that we get the full picture, please.
Well, I think another reason why the magic doesn't come across as much is because like, at least from what I can glean from what I've read, it seems like Danny, and this makes sense just like having read some of Stephen King's books in the past, I think that he like gives Danny way more like cognitive thought, you know what I mean? Like how old is he supposed to be in this?
My guess
in
is
the
like
movie.
6.
In the book, he's 5, but it sounds like he's like, I mean, you're in his head. I think you can like hear, like, you know, it's a book, so you can hear his thoughts. But also, yeah, that's another thing. When you have The Shining, you can hear people's thoughts, and that like you barely get that in this movie. You get that once when he hears Dick say, "You want some ice cream?" Which is a funny scene.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna skip to the end a little bit, but you said something earlier about how it seems like the hotel is more, or whatever the entity is, the evil that is the Overlook Hotel gets stronger when Danny is there because he has the Shining. And that's interesting because obviously Dick is there the rest of the year. Most of the time he also has the Shining, but IMDb trivia said that Danny's Shining is a lot more powerful than Dick's Shining, at least in the book. So that could play a role, but also obviously Danny is experiencing the Shining throughout and from the beginning and before we even get to the hotel. But Jack is the first one of them of the non-Danny characters to really experience that. And then Wendy actually doesn't see it until the end after Dick has been killed. And so the IMDb trivia like talked a lot about comparisons in the book and stuff like that, and it talked about how the hotel is kind of like feeding on the souls of the people who come there and kill and get killed there. And so for right after Dick's death, it to be able to like expand its powers to now affect Wendy too definitely speaks to the role that the Shining plays on like the hotel's power. Like if it's absorbed Dick's soul after that moment and like his strength, his powers, his Shining after that moment, it's interesting that only then can it like extend further.
Interesting.
That was really interesting. Yeah, I really want to read this book now because I just want to see
what the deal is.
Actually is fucking happening, you know.
Spooky Tuesday Book Club, The Shining, anybody?
Spooky Tuesday Book Club
2022.
That and was talking to Adam's sister about this, so
Ooh,
would fucking love that. Slide into our DMs if you would like to join the Spooky Tuesday Book Club. That's what it's called. It's not the Spooky Tuesday Book Club. It's the Spooky Tuesday Book Club.
I would just like to say, this movie at some point does like a 1 month later, and then it starts doing days. The first day it cuts to a Tuesday.
Because they know it's the spookiest of days.
They know it's the spookiest day of the week.
Yeah, bitch.
Boom.
You thought Mondays were scary. I'm gonna leave. I'm so sorry.
Well, you came up with that tagline. You deserve to have your shine on the Shining episode.
Okay, here's one thing that's a big difference from the book to the actual story. You remember how I would say 1/6 of the movie is scenes of our man Dick Halloran, having the dopest pad, the swaggiest pad that anyone has ever seen.
Down in Miami? Oh yeah.
Being a sick ass bitch.
Oh my god. That picture of the naked woman like above his his bed or whatever. Oh my god, I missed the second one. Beautiful, stunning, wood paneled walls everywhere. Nothing that's not wood. Good. That's how I like it. That's how it should be.
As it should be.
Yes. And he's just a great man. All in all, he's not me. I just made myself Danny. So we'll talk about that later in therapy. But giving Danny ice cream, he's a good guy. Explaining things to young Danny, he's a wonderful man. And we watch him travel all across the world. We see him on a continental flight, which is an airline that doesn't exist. You see him in an old plane when the seats used to be big enough for people to sit in. I felt very
yes, it was so luxurious on that plane.
Right? Luxury. And he's in like a suit to go on the plane because people used to dress up for the plane
to fly.
He's obviously beloved. He gets that snowmobile car, whatever, from that guy
Larry or whoever is showing up for him.
And he travels and he travels and he travels. And he gets to the Overlook Hotel to help Danny to answer his psychic call. And he immediately fucking dies. Immediately. Axe to the fucking chess.
Chess.
And guess what? In the book, that doesn't happen.
Really?
Yes. In the book, he gets fucked up by the topiary animals. He does get
Oh.
fucked up by the topiary animals, and he does get injured by Jack, but he does not die. He survives. Yeah. And there's
Okay.
even like an epilogue where it's the next summer and Halloran is comforting Danny over the loss of his father as Wendy recuperates, because in the movie, right, Wendy doesn't get really injured at all. She's like fine. But in the book, Jack fucks her up pretty bad. She gets grievously injured.
Yikes.
Yikes is right.
Okay,
My
let's talk
girl.
about Wendy for a second
Uh-huh.
because, like,
I love
Our-
her.
I love
our
her.
sweet baby girl Shelley Duvall got.
She
I think
said-
rated-
Thin ponytail representation, and that's what I needed on my screen.
but like she got absolutely treated like shit on this movie
Yeah.
set.
Oh yeah.
What? No.
Oh, like
Baby, this is like one of
like,
the most
this is,
famous
like,
fucked up Hollywood things.
historically,
Oh,
like-
fuck. I had no idea. Tell me what happened.
just like Stanley
Stanley Kubrick Monster
was
Challenge.
just really horrible to her specifically. Like she kind of had a mental break filming this movie. And go ahead.
The argument is not that he is a bad person. The argument is that he was isolating her and antagonizing her for her performance in
Oh
order
my
to
God.
elicit such a performance.
Baby, we don't all have to be
Um,
method. Like, come on.
I know. Also, allegedly, he fed Jack Nicholson cheese sandwiches, which Jack Nicholson hates, for 2 weeks straight. That was the only food he got, so that he would be properly irritable during his scenes or whatever. But it's also just like Shelley Duvall has said she had like lifelong psychological damage from filming this movie. Like, I understand eliciting the best performance from your actors. I don't think you can do that without their consent, for one. And I
Yeah.
don't think that you should cause lifelong damage in the meantime, for two. You know
No.
what I mean? Like, maybe we don't do that.
Yeah, it's
Like-
like you tell an actor to like channel something. You ask them about like things that this, I don't know. I had an acting teacher once. I did one fucking what's it called? Audition, and he was like, think of how this can relate to your life and use that. That's what you do. That's what you do. You don't make them live the pain actually. I also heard that Stanley Kubrick made his assistant type out all those fucking Jack's, the dull boy. All work, no play makes Jack a dull boy. Every single one of them. So he made that person go crazy too. God.
Maybe they had fun though. Maybe they were like, I'm gonna do all these different formats.
No, they hated it.
Oh,
I
bummer.
don't blame them. But also like the Wendy, again, her name is Winifred, which I love because again, I
Yes.
also have a fur baby named Winifred because you know all the bad bitches in horror are named Winifred. But in the book, like so in the movie, Wendy seems like kind of meek and like kind of not sure about herself most of the time. Like you can tell she's clearly kind of like under Jack's thumb a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Like where she's like,
She
"Oh,
also
yeah, like-
runs really weird, and that kind of adds to that whole
Leave her
vibe.
alone.
yes.
Hey, it's a cute run, but it's not an effective one. Please continue. I'm sorry.
But like in the book, she's like I'm not taking any of your shit kind of like she'll
Yeah.
stand up to him. Like she's this really strong female character that like will stand up to Jack and isn't afraid to put him in his place and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of think it's a disservice to the character to made her like I don't know what to, like it kind of like in the acting I just kind of felt like she like
I
she-
love the way she did it, but I totally see what you're saying. Like knowing that, like that they changed the characterization, it's really frustrating. Also, like in what I've read about the book, it says that Wendy, like a month in, is like, fuck this shit, fuck this noise, let's leave, Danny. And Danny's like, this is why I said that he like seems to have like more, he's more verbose in the book. He's like, Mom, Dad really needs this right now, so we need to stay and support him. Like Danny says that to Wendy because Wendy wants
Oh.
them to leave. Yeah,
So
I was like, what? That's so different than the characterizations in the
in some of my
movie.
research. So what we get a lot more of Jack's backstory. Like his dad was a mean, abusive alcoholic. He had a brother that died in like a war. Like, so he has a lot of, like he was also an alcoholic. He was a teacher who like when we see in the movie, he's like, yeah, I used to be a teacher, but they don't really go into it. But in the book, he was a teacher who beat one of his students.
Oh,
Yeah,
And so
he
he was
assaulted
fired.
them. Yeah, physically. And also, he didn't just pull Danny's arm out of its socket in the book. He broke his arm in the book.
Yeah. Which
rough.
you see like but in the book, Danny is very attached to Jack. Like, so in the book, like, so him saying, no, we have to stay here for Dad, like all this kind of stuff, like
Makes more sense.
You see in the movie, like it just kind of seems like Danny is indifferent a little to his dad. Know what I mean? Because you mostly
scared.
just see
Yeah.
him and his mom interact. But in the book, even though like his dad broke his arm and all this kind of stuff, like he's very much like infatuated or like kind of like, a 5 or 6-year-old would be like with one of their parents, all this kind of stuff. 'Cause they don't know like the overall like abuse that is happening. They just see like, this is my father. I'm very attached to my father.
Yeah, it's really interesting that they chose to make Danny like
mute, basically. In
I was literally about to say mute. Yeah, he's like, he barely says anything. Like he just, all of his scenes in the middle of the film are him on his little trike going around.
Just making facial expressions
Bopping
or
around.
talking to Tony.
Yeah, that's it. It's really interesting.
It is interesting. I don't really mind those changes. I have like kind of complicated feelings about it. Stephen King thought it was like super misogynistic to make Wendy a much more meek, less strong-willed character who's not necessarily standing up for herself. I kind of think that's a little bullshit personally, because like
he's not known for not being misogynistic in his books.
Yeah,
too,
for one.
So
and it also it feels just like very dated to me, and that for so long we were like, strong female characters must behave in very stereotypically masculine ways to be considered strong. And I think there are lots of different ways to be strong, and we've now culturally had this conversation a lot, so I'm not super gonna rehash it.
No, I totally agree. I think she's still really strong because
she's
of
a badass.
She's
fully final girl material. She gets her son out. She knocks her son out with, or her husband out with a bat. She drags him to the pantry to lock him up. Like, she is a complicated character, and I think it is really a disservice to her to be like, she's weak, scared, fraidy cat, do nothing baby. Like, Stephen King said something like, she exists just to scream and be scared, which just feels like a willful misunderstanding because you don't like it being a different version, which is fine. But she is taking agency. She's taking action. She's protecting her son. She's giving her husband a second chance. Yes. And there's a lot going on. And like, you can argue whether or not she should have stayed in the first place after he dislocated her son's arm. But it seems like in theory, he was taking the steps that he needed until they come to the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah.
It seems like in theory, they were taking the steps that they needed to have Jack work on his sobriety, to leave whatever environment they were in previously that was like not conducive to that, to start fresh, to really try to be better about these things. And like, obviously things go off the rail. And I did notice actually at one point when Wendy is talking to the doctor in the beginning, she says like, my husband hasn't drank in 5 months. And then when Jack is in the bar later, which is a month after they've come to the Overlook Hotel, he says it's been 5 months. And so presumably at that point, it should have been 6 months. And I don't know if that's like a script issue or if that is to imply that his break with alcohol was not per se as clean as Wendy thought it was, or as he portrayed it to be. And that's part of, I think, Stephen King's issue too, is like in the books, he really saw Jack Torrance. Is that his last name? Yeah. Jack Torrance as like a good guy of unimpeachable character who struggled with alcoholism and hurt his son, but is a wonderful person when he is doing his best to have all of his supports in place or whatever. And that strong, unimpeachable character gets corrupted by the overwhelming evil of the Overlook Hotel. Whereas in the movie, his take is like, this Jack Torrance, this character portrayed by Jack Nicholson, known for playing unhinged, crazy, kooky characters, is like on the brink already, requires like the wave of one feather to push him over the edge instead of the hotel being this incredible power. And so I kind of take issue with that. I think that's where a lot of it comes in. And that's also what influences the different characters' portrayals, because like a Wendy who is married to this version of a Jack is not going to be the Wendy who's married to a completely different version of a different Jack. You know, you have to adjust.
No, I mean, we were joking before the episode started, like, this book came out in 77, the movie came out in 80. And I was like, it seems like maybe Kubrick didn't finish the book and then he just started making the movie. Because like it's so different. It's so different. In the book, it's more of a possession story. It's not like Jack necessarily losing his mind and to the isolation and all of that. Like partly, that made him probably broke down his barriers, but it's like it says that he's possessed by the house, I keep saying that, the hotel, the Overlook Hotel. And there's this, it's really interesting, the end of the book, he hurts Wendy, blah blah blah. He ends up like cornering Danny up at the top of the hotel or some shit, I don't know. And he briefly grabs back hold of himself, and he tells Danny like, you need to go, you need to escape, like run away from me, please. And then the hotel like clamps back down on him. He takes a mallet, beats the shit out of his own face with it, so his face is destroyed, thus destroying the last bit of himself, and then goes full ape shit on him. And then in the book, you want to know how it ends? You want to know how it ends in the book?
Yeah.
In the book, you know how he's like, we see
book spoilers.
Wendy, you see her in the boiler room at one point during the movie, right? And that's one of the main parts of the job, is that Jack is supposed to be like tending to the boiler room and turning the heat on in certain parts of the hotel so it doesn't freeze and that sort of thing. Well, in the book, he's like started to neglect his duties, and he hasn't been tending.
Pay attention to them once in the movies. It was Wendy the whole time.
Oh yeah, Wendy was doing them the whole time. He was too busy typing the same sentence in different fun little styles.
Too busy doing his tennis ball exercise.
Oh my god, I was getting so mad when he was doing that. I was like, that will leave scuffs on the wall. How will you explain that? How are you going to explain that? That's high up. Anyway,
and he had so much confidence he wasn't gonna like knock a deer head off the wall or anything. But
there's one point where it's like this close to hitting something. Also, they didn't have Mr. Clean magic erasers back in the day, which gets those scuffs out in just a second. So I don't understand. Anyway, the book. Apparently at this point, like at the crux, like right as Jack's like smashing his old face in, Danny's like, well, fuck you, hotel, for like killing my dad. You're about to blow up, bitch, because they hadn't been tending to the boiler room. And so then the hotel inside of Jack's body is like, oh my God, goes down to the boiler room to try to like release the pressure to save it from exploding. Cause like it's like it was like a bomb ready to go off somehow. I don't know how boiler rooms work. And then
checks out to me.
It seems right. I don't know. Boiler room. That sounds scary. And then he tries to fix it, and then it explodes, and Jack dies, and the hotel explodes, and Danny and Dick and Wendy survive. The end.
Okay. So I think when you said earlier about how in the book he's possessed,
Yeah.
I think we see there's like a clear switch, like point in the movie where, you know, he's kind of like losing his mind,
Yeah.
like as soon as he gets there, right? Like the isolation, all this kind of stuff. But there's like a clear moment, and it's when he goes into room 237 with the sexy naked ghost
Scary spooky lady.
And I think that is supposed to represent the hotel, like
Getting
you know, he walks
inside of him.
yes, full, like that's when I think he becomes like possessed with the hotel.
And it's also he literally embraces her, you know what I mean? Like
Right, like
that's
he
him
is
embracing.
And here's the thing, he's seeing like this sexy naked lady with incredible early 80s bush. And then after he's like fully embraced her, he sees like what it truly is, which is this like horrible
bloated
rotting
corpse.
And I think that's like a big visual representation of what the hotel actually is. It's this beautiful, like magnificent thing on the outside, but when you actually like see it, it is this like rotting, nasty thing. And then we see like you know, he's back in time. He's having all the like weird hallucinations, I guess, of all the ghosts.
Room. I love that part.
I do too. And it's very interesting because like everybody's dressed up in flapper gear. You see like all the women in the flapper gear in like the 20s and stuff. But he's having a conversation with the former caretaker, Grady. And Grady's like, are you gonna finish this job? Like, are you gonna do it? Like, blah, 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 blah. Like implying like you have to murder your wife and your child. Like, you have to do it. And that's when he's like, oh, I'm gonna do it, blah, blah, blah. One thing that is very interesting too is when Wendy knocks him out and locks him in the storage room, the dry storage room, and he's having that conversation with Grady, being like, she's smarter than you think she is, like she's gonna give you a run for your money, are you gonna do it? And then it like the hotel opens up this locked storage room for him, which is like so like that's like really spooky. And you're like, and then you see Danny, like that's where we get Danny writing red rum, which is, you know, murder backwards in the window. That to me is one of the spookiest parts of the entire movie.
And that's where I feel like it crosses over from psychological horror, where Danny could be having visions of ghosts or psychic experiences or whatever, into something much more generally supernatural. Because at first in that scene, I was like, oh, well, this is his delusion. His delusion can't open a locked door. He's on the other side of it. And then it does open the locked door, which kind of proves that like, it's not just in his head. It's not just something that he's experiencing. It's something that's happening to him.
And the other thing is that like we actually already knew that this hotel can reach out and grab you, because it literally attacked Danny. Danny has that ripped collar, that ripped sweater, the big red marks on his neck, because the woman in room 237 like strangled him, you know? And so like it's yeah, you're right. That is like when it crosses over and it's real.
Well, I would argue there's also another moment that really stood out to me. Before Jack goes into that room, it's when he's fallen asleep. He had the dream that he chopped Wendy and Danny up into little pieces. He was screaming. Wendy comes in.
Oh, he's such an incredible actor in this, though. Just a little shine on Jack Nicholson.
Terrifying. Everyone is incredible.
So amazing.
But that's when Danny comes in with the marks on his neck. And it's like during that dream sequence, actually, presumably it was like while Jack was sleeping, having that nightmare, which is an interesting parallel. But after that, after Wendy like flips on him and stops being sympathetic to him and accuses him and is like, you did this. He goes into the bar, and that's when he first sees Lloyd, the bartender, and it's just two of them. But what I thought was super interesting is that right before that, he says, God, I'd give anything for a drink. I'd give my goddamn soul for just a glass of beer. And that's when Lloyd pops up and is like, hello, would you like a drink? And I was like, oh, he really did just like make a bargain with the devil in that moment. Like that, he literally says, I would give up my soul for a drink right now. Lloyd pops up and is like, here's a drink for you. He drinks it.
I need to stop being so flippant with what I say. If like something like that can just take the soul right out of you.
He drinks it. You know what I mean? He takes, it's very like Alice in Wonderland. Don't eat, don't drink in Wonderland. You know what I mean? Like he makes that choice. He's damned from that point forward.
He drinks the Kool-Aid, if you will. Oh,
exactly.
But so going,
he also calls his wife essentially a cum dumpster in that scene. So fuck off.
Yeah, there's always that. Love a good.
He says the sperm bank upstairs. I was like, you little bitch ass shit ass bitch.
Also, this movie says the hard R with
the bad word,
and it says Stephen King. What do you have about the N-word? Stop saying the N-word.
Right? Like
so many times.
Unnecessary.
He's like rolling the R at the end almost to put the emphasis on it.
He's like, I'm not racist. I just write all these racist characters, which like, sure, but do we have to? What if we didn't? Just a thought.
A
with
little.
The, like,
add anything?
The like 5 chapters I've read of it, it's like gay hate crime, anti-Semitism, the F slur 45,000 times, the K slur. I'm just like, I had to turn it off.
Like, okay, Stephen King, come on.
He's painting a picture of how terrible our world is. I get it, but also no thanks for me personally. No thanks.
Right? Like that still makes me, I hate it. Like
I don't think in this movie, in this scene, it added literally anything.
It's so
it didn't add anything. And they did their whole like built on an Indian burial ground in the beginning.
Which isn't in the book.
All the Indians kept attacking us while we were building it. It's like maybe don't fucking do. And then
only
they
in the
decorated
movie
with Native American art motifs.
I know.
Like that is very colonial of you.
The moral of the story of the movie is do not do anything on top of a native burial ground, motherfucker. Like, come on. Like they say it at the beginning and then you're like, yeah, okay, well. There you go.
Which I want to talk about the end briefly, but then I have like a list of like all the weird conspiracy theories surrounding like the movie adaptation.
Are you gonna talk about the moon landing?
Hilarious. So
I'm very
funny.
Excited. I have not watched Room 237, so I can't wait.
I've watched it so many times and I still don't fully comprehend it. So we're just gonna like briefly touch on all of them because they are insane. But so the end where you have the iconic here's Johnny and he just like pops his face, which again we've said this once, the acting in this movie, Monica is now holding a bloody axe.
Gorgeous. Love a prop.
Wait. How do I look like her when she's like all scared and she's like and the axe comes in the screen.
Amazing.
Exactly the movie. Anyway,
or just gorgeous girls love reenacting movies.
You'll see it in post.
So one thing that I read was when they are running through the maze, Jack is still like fully possessed by the house, but Danny is able to like outsmart him. And he's
so smart.
He's like backtracking.
I just got a question about that at some point.
Okay. He's backtracking. He's hiding. Like Jack is like Jack/the house or the hotel at this point is trying to find him because I fully believe like the hotel is possessing
him.
Jack.
Yeah.
And Danny outsmarts him and gets back to Wendy and they like escape in the little like Catmobile, right? But you notice like we see Jack Nicholson like running around the maze And he kind of looks confused and he's like, Wendy, help. I think that's when the house kind of like lets go of him because they realize like he's not gonna do it. And it's actually Jack being like confused and is like, what's going on? Like all this kind of stuff. And that's when he kind of like sits down and freezes to death. And we get the most iconic still frame of him frozen, which is just
What a moment.
so funny. Like truly hilarious.
His eyes are literally like rolled back in his head.
But then
I
like
guess that's how it happens. Freezing to
there's,
death
like-
is not my fave way to go, you know?
it would
Be
not
one of the better ways to go, probably.
Oh yeah, you fall asleep, right?
You take
Yeah.
your clothes off, which is fun to get naked.
yeah, hypothermia. You'll like take off all your clothes because you think you're really hot, and then
Your body
like,
starts to
die.
feel warm.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. That's very deeply upsetting. Continue.
And
I'm sure it sure is.
Oh, I'm upset. Yes. You were saying?
uh,
Oh,
but
that is
I
so
want to talk
moving.
about that if you're segueing into something
yes,
different.
no. Let's go. Let's talk about this.
Okay, I think that is super interesting actually, because what I thought was compelling about his like final moments in the maze is how incomprehensible he gets, how unintelligible he gets. He's like
Yeah.
fully slurring, he's not saying the words, and I think you could make the argument that his mind maybe is just like too degraded for the house to really be able to control him, or you could argue that like he's already suffering the effects of hypothermia maybe, and his body's like starting to shut down and it's losing control. But arguably, if the hotel was still in control of him, the hotel would, you'd think it would know how to help him find his way out of the maze, right?
Yeah.
You'd think it would be like, that's my maze, bitch. Like,
Yeah.
here's how to get
I
out. It
made
wouldn't
that
necessarily
shit.
help him find Danny, but it would guide him out if that's what it wanted and needed, and it so had control of him. So the fact that he gets lost, that he gets so confused, that he's no longer capable of like speaking clearly at all, I think is a really good argument for what you're
Yeah,
saying.
That's really interesting. I literally never would have picked up on that.
So like, but I do think it's like now knowing what you said in the book, how it's like he regains kind of
Has
like a
that
moment
moment.
of consciousness.
yeah.
I think in the movie, like that's what that is at that
Uh-huh.
very end, where he's like, Wendy, Danny,
I like
like
that.
help. But we see
'Cause
them
he-
driving away, but it's the hotel being like, you're useless now, they're gone.
Yeah, because also like he got big bomped on the head, okay? Like that was not a little bump, and then he also rolled all the way down the fucking stairs. So like
Mhm.
like it could be hypothermia making him slur his words, but it could be like
Or he has a
the
brain bleed
hotel's
that's
letting
getting
him go-
progressively
yeah,
worse. Yeah.
yeah, like he is yeah. It might
His
be
brain
that
is
whole
just
brain
fully
bleed thing. Yeah. So could go either way.
But so
So
like,
much happens in that day before the 4 p.m. time card. My God.
oh yeah,
It's a big day. Also, like really quickly before we move on to the theories, I just want to give some shine to Shelley Duvall. That's her name, right?
yes.
Her fucking face. Like it should be studied. I could look
Incredible.
at her for hours. I could look at her for years. Everything about her face, her eyes. I've never seen eyes like that. Her beauty, like her teeth, the way her whole face goes together. I love her. Oh,
She kind of became like a recluse a little for a while, but she was
Because
in
Stanley Kubrick gave her PTSD.
but she was
Fucking
in the Popeye movie as Olive with Robin Williams.
Wow. Oh
Olive
my
oil.
God.
I saw
Was
that on
she
IMDb. I was like,
born
she's
to
the
play
perfect olive oil.
The perfect olive
Wow.
oil.
She
So
is the perfect olive oil. Wow. I need to see that immediately.
but so like that's the ending of the movie, like the still frame, but it like then we see a picture. It like a camera pans back into the hotel and it's like a black and white from like July 4th, 1921.
The July 4th ball, as you know,
Or 27?
as
I
everyone
don't know.
throws the ball for
It's
July
sometime
4th.
in the 1920s.
Bitches in
And-
the 20s threw balls. Okay, Chelsea? It was
I know,
They
we need to bring
said-
that back.
It
Yeah,
would be a
bring
New
back
Year's Eve
balls.
ball, but we established already that is off season, so it has to be
Be
midsummer.
4th of July. Midsummer. Ooh.
Mm.
Ooh.
Mm.
But so we see like Jack in the full-blown
Chilling,
photo.
hanging.
And so like part of you wonders, like, is this just the hotel's way of saying, like, I have fully absorbed him and now he is like a part of this hotel? Like,
Delbert Grady.
Are all the people in that picture
Oh,
that the
yeah.
hotel has absorbed?
I had that question at some point too.
Like,
Yeah, I didn't even have any questions because I was just like, what the fuck?
Wow, spooky. Yeah.
I was like, what? Like, how is he always there? Like, wouldn't people recognize him from the picture? No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's kind of the question was he or whoever that was always in that picture and that picture was always hanging there? Or is he only in that picture as of the end of the film?
Well, you also like
There's no way to know.
because there's a butler that Jack talks to who is like
Grady.
named also Grady, but then there's the caretaker.
Like, Charles Grady, different name. Interesting. I want to talk about that.
It's different Gradys. And so it goes like
there's 2 Gradys?
2 different Gradys.
And that's part of the confusion God. Because Jack to him is like, Grady, you were the caretaker. And Delbert, not Charles Grady, is like, no, I wasn't. I'm just a man who says the N-word.
And so it's like, are these like reincarnations of like certain people that like make it out of the hotel, but because they made it out, do they have to go back to the hotel?
Like, I mean, I think that's the question. You know what I mean? Delbert Grady says to him, like, you were always here. You were always part of this. You've always been the caretaker. And so it is kind of a question. He says in the beginning of the movie at some point that he has deja vu. And it's like he says, when I came up here for my interview, it was as though I'd been here before. I mean, we all have moments of deja vu, but this was ridiculous. It was almost as though I knew what was going to be around every corner. So I think you can argue time is a flat circle. You know what I mean? So is it like a reincarnation thing? Is it he the same soul that got away before and was drawn back? Or is it that this is his first time here, but time operates differently at Overlook Hotel, especially in isolation when the hotel can fully focus and narrow all of its powers into 1 to 3 people at a time and not be like diluting them across the 600 people staying there during the summer season?
You know, I don't think it can be reincarnation as far as the lore of the movie itself, just because
once the soul is absorbed.
Well, I think that Jack says he remembers seeing something in the paper about the slaying that happened, and didn't they say it happened in 70?
Well, here's the thing. Jack says to Delbert Grady, I remember seeing this in the paper, but we get the information about Charles Grady, the caretaker, from Mr. Ullman in the beginning, who's like hiring Jack during the interview. And at no point in that conversation does Jack really like let on that this is something he's heard about before or knows about. And so it's kind of like, is Jack no longer fully in control of his faculties? Does he no longer quite have the ability to separate the reality from what the hotel is telling him? Are like things muddled? It's part of the confusion. And I think for Stephen King's point, I don't think there's necessarily a clear, concise, consistent logic to it. Maybe there was. Maybe Stanley Kubrick was like, here are my thoughts in doing this. I don't know that it's ever been explained, but what Jack tells us is not what we see happen.
Yeah. God, no wonder I was so confused watching this movie, because like it is. I have no idea. Like I really can't. I can't say. I want to read the book so I can know like if there's any sort of inkling of this, like you've always been in the hotel kind of thing. Because like from what I read in this Wikipedia article and in my PhD on the subject, there's no reference to anything like that. It's all like possession.
I think you can kind of make the argument for both, depending on what appeals to you, especially given that the movie ends differently. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No, I
Because
like that choice that Kubrick made. I think that it's really fucking like you're like, what the fuck is going on? I'll never know, and that's fine with me.
yeah, well, Stephen King really likes to have the evil defeated at the end of his movies a lot of the time, or not movies, his books, his stories generally speaking. But I think there's because the hotel doesn't get destroyed in the movie, there's space to argue that the Jack in the picture is like a previous Jack who wasn't sucked in, destroyed, absorbed by the hotel, and that's why this Jack was drawn back to it and like was consumed by it this time. And the fact that I think Danny and Wendy escape would, in a theoretical movie sequel to this version of The Shining, leave space for them to feel like that same pull back to the hotel one day, especially Danny as he gets older. And if he's like repressed a lot of this, doesn't remember it, you know what I mean? But because the hotel gets destroyed in the book, there is a literal book sequel, and that's just like kind of off the table. Because the
It's all
hotel
about
got destroyed.
The
You know what I
Shining.
mean? Right. He's like, back to the point of my story. Excuse you.
Remember how this child is like clairvoyant and sees visions and can hear your thoughts? Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more.
Let's explore that. But I do have a question about Danny and Tony, actually. So you talked about in the hedge scene that you think we see the hotel lose control of Jack, and we see Jack kind of return to himself in some capacity. I think that's super interesting. What I am wondering is like, when does Danny regain control of himself? Because Tony seems to take over at some point in the movie. And he only calls Wendy Mrs. Torrance. It's like right during that part when Delbert Grady has convinced Jack to kill his family. That's when Danny like fully starts screaming and doing his red rum repeating, and then like it turns into like the shriek of red rum. And like
seeing Tony
The Shining, I think at that moment is like telling him like danger is here. There's some arguments on IMDb where people are like, Tony in the books apparently is short for Anthony, which is Danny's middle name, and it's like Danny's adult self kind of guiding him through things, and he exists outside of Danny, and Danny can like see him as a human adult man and speak to him. Obviously in the movie, Danny says that Tony is a little boy who lives in his mouth, and he uses his little finger when he's speaking for Tony. I still think Tony is like a benevolent figure who is trying to help Danny. The IMDb is like, it's evil because he's taking over his brain. He's having these attacks. It's like, no, his brain is just doing a lot. He's having a seizure. Leave him alone. His brain is firing too many cylinders
it's a coping
at once.
mechanism with the powers that he has.
Right. But
I don't see
moment,
Tony as bad.
Tony's good. Tony's a little prince. And Tony takes over at that point, and he does the Danny's not here, Mrs. Torrance. Danny can't wake up, Mrs. Torrance. Danny's gone away, Mrs. Torrance. But Danny is happy to accept a hug from Wendy. You know what I mean? So we know he's nice. But I think I'm kind of wondering when Danny comes out of the hedge maze, and Wendy is there and she grabs him. He says, "Mommy." So he's Danny again at that point. But at what point does Tony go away and Danny come out? Because I kind of felt like Tony was leading him through the hedge maze and came up with the idea to like backtrack and like hide your footprints. But is that Danny? Is that Tony? Where do you guys think it comes in?
I thought it was when he's screaming red rum and
she kind of snaps
Wendy.
him out of it.
Yeah, because he goes red rum, and then all of a sudden he's like red rum, like a baby again, instead of like a Tony scrutchy voice like right then.
But the Danny's not here, Mrs. Torrance comes after that.
No, there's two different times where he does red rum. He's like screaming it in his sleep.
The second time.
And then the second time he writes it and holds the knife. And that's definitely still Tony. And it is like that's when he kind of wakes Wendy up because he knows Jack is coming.
Yeah.
He like knows like that. I think is Tony warning her like they're in danger.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Wendy like is shaking him, and I think that snaps him out, and then I think it's Danny through
Because
the
you can
rest of the
hear
from that
movie.
point on.
You can hear it in the register of his voice when he's screaming Red Rum. At first, it's like the
Yeah.
spooky version of
You're
it,
right, 'cause-
and then it turns into baby boy voice.
As soon as you said that, I remembered in my notes that I wrote creaky, creaky, red rum, Tony baby, and then screaming red rum, Tony baby. And that was like, that moment was a distinction for me. And you're right, that was a second red rum moment. Okay, I accept your argument. I like it. My other questions, I have some other questions before we get to our segments.
And we got to hear all of Sydney's room 237 theories.
Oh, yes. And I'll lead into that by saying, what do we think happened to the lady in room 237? Like,
She has
Danny
an
brings
entire
that up.
backstory. Monica, you can tell him because you've read you're an expert of the book.
I thought that didn't exist
that's
in the
not
books.
in what I read. That's not it. I thought maybe it was the wife I thought maybe it was Grady's wife, and she had
She
been
gets
killed.
strapped up too.
Oh, the sexy.
I don't know.
The
Did they
sexy
chop her
bathtub
in-
lady.
Yeah,
That doesn't
I don't
exist
know.
in the books, I don't think.
I have
Yes,
no
it
idea.
does. Yes, she does.
Oh, excuse me.
She was a hold on.
Was she a
I
Bush
can't think of her
model?
name. No.
sorry.
She's
She's American model.
she was
American
like a
model.
married hotel patron who would sleep with younger men.
A
And-
Patreon.
A cougar.
Yeah. Patreon.
Sorry,
Sydney
you said
really wants us
you
to start
said-
our Patreon.
You said Patreon instead of patron, and I was just like,
Oh.
it's subliminal messaging.
Whoopsies.
no.
we'll get there. Don't
It's fine,
rush
it's fine, it's
us.
fine. Keep going.
And I can't think of her name, but she brought this young guy up to her room, and he robbed her, stole her Porsche and stuff, and so she took a bunch of sleeping pills and mixed it with alcohol and died in the bathtub. It's in the book.
Okay.
And so
Interesting.
that's who that is.
Oh, all right. Well, I really thought it was the mom, and that he had stabbed her, and she fell in the bathtub, and then they didn't find her her corpse for a really long time, and so bloated in there. That's what I thought it was,
definitely
but I
felt
was
like
wrong.
the decaying in the bathtub was relevant to her being such a vengeful spirit. Because Danny from the beginning has like his shining about room 237, and he talks to Dick Halloran about it and is like, what's the deal in there? And Dick is like, nothing's the deal in there. Don't worry about it. And given what we saw of her, I was like, I don't think she was like murdered per se, but that nobody would find her body for weeks until she's decaying to that point, or days, or whatever it is, that nobody would go looking for her. I could see that making a ghost real angry.
Oh yeah,
I'd be
one likes
pissed.
that. I certainly would. I would haunt some asses because of that.
Especially
For
if I got
sure.
robbed. Yeah, I'd be mad.
Wait, okay, Sydney, I want to hear these theories because, like, yeah, I'll eventually. I probably won't watch the movie. I probably won't watch the documentary. So please,
You should,
give me the
because your
rundown.
boyfriend loves them. We had a
I
nice
know.
text conversation. He was like, I heard you were watching Room 237. I love it. I was like, I do, and I've seen it multiple times, but I don't fully absorb a lot of the things. I'm like, la 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 la.
Yeah.
So the first one that they talk about is the movie is about Native American genocide.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I saw
Because-
something about that on IMDb trivia.
Because how y'all were talking about earlier that like there's a bunch of Native American motifs, like they talk about how it was built on a Native American burial ground, which is not in the book. Like I guess it's the movie's way of trying to like explain maybe why there's more paranormal, but honestly I think that's a cheap cop out.
The whole trope of Native American burial ground, I think, is one that I haven't really engaged with enough academically to unpack, but seems sus to me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But also in terms of a metaphor of like, we really should not have genocided this culture and all of these people. Like, yeah, we should
not
be
have
punished
done
for
that.
that.
Yeah.
We
so-
should
yeah.
have to face horror upon horrors for that. So fair.
Yeah.
So this
I
is
agree.
based off like a real hotel. Like Stephen King, I almost said Stanley King, and I'm like, that's not right.
The perfect marriage of the two of them.
Maybe that would squash their beef.
Stanley King, where are you at? Stanley King, lay this beef to rest.
But so they do talk about how like this is based off a real hotel. Like none of the stuff is like based off a true story, but like it is the hotel that this is based off is a real place. And there was like actual Navajo tribe tension in the area in the early 1900s. And so I think that's why Stanley Kubrick like put more like Native American stuff in there. But people are like, they talk about how the like Calumet baking powder is like on the shelf is like considered like when it's between Danny and Dick, you can see the whole word. And so it's like a peace pipe, but then the next time you see it is when Jack is talking to Grady and you can't see a full image, so it's a false narrative. And I'm like, okay, sure. And then we get into Chelsea.
Very granular. Anyway.
And then we get into Chelsea's the Apollo 11 moon landing was fake.
Yes, I want to hear about this.
Wonderful,
because I saw references to it on IMDb, and I was like, I am not investigating further, but I would love for someone to tell me.
So basically, they think that Stanley Kubrick was involved in the faking of the 1969 moon landing.
Oh, because he was.
That
he denies it, Monica.
It goes back to the 1968, his 2001 A Space Odyssey film, basically being like a run through for faking the moon landing. And so The Shining was him like getting all of that off his chest.
Should I have James come in here and do a testimony on behalf of JPL?
Tell us about if the moon is real or not.
I don't think the real.
Moon, I think
the moon is my
fake.
girlfriend, but that doesn't mean she's corporeal. You know what I mean?
But so they talk about like in one of the scenes, like Danny's playing alone, and the carpet in the hotel I think is like a character within itself, because I love the carpet in this hotel.
Okay, everybody loves the orange one, but the green carpet, that's a slightly different
I just want to go back.
Also amazing.
And the spooky room,
the room spooky bathroom, the spooky green bathroom is incredible, and I think we should have more colored bathrooms. I think people that remove the like vintage colored bathrooms in their houses and stuff are bad people.
I agree.
For, like, an all-white bathroom, I think that is a crime. Like that is a hate crime for beautiful vintage things.
My childhood bathroom has pink toilet, pink bidet, and another childhood bathroom that I frequent often is all blue. Blue toilet, blue bidet, and we'll never get rid of them.
My childhood bathroom at our house in Alabama had like a blue tub and all that kind of stuff because it was built in the 60s. And Mark ripped it all out. And so now we have no bathtubs in our house. It's only just like brown showers. And I'm just like, this is a hate crime to me personally.
Hater behavior.
Brown showers.
Brown. Unacceptable.
No one wants brown. This is how I feel about brown showers. Anyway.
So there's like
theory. What was the theory?
So there's one scene where Danny is like playing alone in the geometrical like pattern carpet, and then he stands up revealing his Apollo 11 sweater, and people are
I did take note of that.
This is him being, and there's a thing too where the keychain that is engraved in the key for room 227
237
yes 237, it's an anagram, so it says like room NO for number 237. And the conspiracies say it is an anagram forming interchangeable rooms or interchangeable words, moon and room. Therefore, the moon landing. So the key on
room no noon moon or
moon
or
oh my god. Room.
It's the moon, or is it?
Okay,
but there's still the R. There's still the R floating around.
Or, Monica.
Room. The R is room. moon. So moon and room. Like it's an anagram
it.
for moon and room.
But an anagram, you have to use all the letters.
That's
so
why
it
it's moon
doesn't
or.
work.
Because you take
Oh,
the M
I get
from
it, I
the
get it.
end
There's
of
an extra O in there. There's an
room, and
extra
you
O in
move
there.
it, and then the N from number, and you put it at the end. So
No,
now you've
it's-
got
there's
moon,
no- it doesn't
and you
say
take
number.
the R.
It doesn't
It
say
says
number. It says
N-O.
N-O.
Yeah, that's why
why
it works.
moon or.
I get it. Wow. Moon or
Okay.
what? You know?
Moon or
And then
what, baby?
Moon or what, silly Kubrick?
Tell us what
And
you
then
won't
there's-
say.
Then there's another thing that this is all about the Holocaust.
Oh, okay. Not prepared
Um,
to comment on that at this time.
So
How?
it talks about how there's a reoccurring use of the number 42 in the movie. And as the year 1942 was when the final solution was put into place.
Oh,
And then it talks about the typewriter is a Adler, which it's a German manufactured typewriter called Adler, and Adler means eagle. And there's one thing where Jack is wearing an eagle shirt in one of
Okay.
the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says where Jack types out "all work, no play makes Jack's a dull boy" symbolizes the Third Reich's mechanical method of killing people and their obsession with list making.
This feels like a reach to me, but also in light of Apple's whole villains aren't allowed to use iPhones thing, like who knows, I guess who knows, maybe the German typewriter was placed there very specifically. But Stanley Kubrick apparently said no to both moon landing and Holocaust. So
Okay. And then there's this disappearing
Ooh.
acts and metaphorical themes.
Mhm.
And so it just says, it's rumored that Kubrick had an IQ of 200 and was meticulous about details in the film. And there's a
this is
there's
just
an
so funny to me. Keep
continuity
going.
error in The Shining.
Uh-huh.
And everybody, like, it's big Taylor Swift, right? How everybody's like, Taylor Swift never does anything by coincidence. It all has a
Okay.
meaning, right?
Okay.
Same energy.
Yes.
And so the scene where Danny,
We are recording this on her birthday also.
I
Happy
know.
birthday, Taylor!
Happy birthday, Taylor Swift! But the scene where Danny's talking to Tony in his bathroom, like where he's like, Jack's gonna take this job, all this kind of stuff. The camera pans towards him in a hallway, and you see images of Dopey from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
I did notice lots of Disney characters in this film. He wears a little Mickey Mouse sweatshirt at one point too. And I was like,
And
did they have
then-
to get licensing for this?
Probably. Like, think of all the Heinz
Like
products
Snoopy's
that
in
is
the background
this.
too.
But so Danny then gets the vision of the bloody elevator and faints. And then that's the whole doctor scene. And when Wendy and the doctor leave, the camera catches that same kind of like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs imagery that we've seen, but Dopey is missing. And people think that is a sign that Danny is no longer Dopey, but he is now woke to the whole situation that is about to happen.
I want to die.
Hold on, there's more.
Wait, because here's one from IMDb trivia. It says the color red is visible, either overtly or subtly, in nearly every shot of the film. This is presumably because Colorado was so named because it is another Spanish word for red. I was just like, no, that's not true.
Fucking.
That's
People,
not right.
Can we
Shut up.
just calm down?
Who put that
There's, like,
there?
I mean, like, I'm happy. I'm glad that there's somebody paying attention, but I'm so glad it doesn't have to be me. Like, Jesus Christ.
Right? Could you imagine? Okay, so there's one more, and it's the Labyrinth and the Minotaur. And
Oh.
This one I'm
There's-
open to hearing because of the maze.
so there's a when Jack is talking about at the very beginning when he's doing his interview, he goes on about how like, oh, like why is it closed in the winter? Like, wouldn't this be a great like ski resort? And they were like, no, kind of like back in the day, skiing wasn't really a thing. And so this was like it's too remote to be a ski lodge. Like we couldn't keep it up in the winter because it gets too much snow. So we have to shut it down. And then the whole family gets there and Danny is playing in the game room and he's throwing darts. And this is where we first see the Grady twins, which the Grady twins are not in the book, by the way.
They're
it was
not
only
twins also.
It was only one daughter.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I love that choice that Kubrick made.
Oh no, the twins is very spooky and we love. Like
people are always like, and twins, you know, and so
twins are scary to begin with. I know my mother,
even though they're specifically like they're 8 and 10, it doesn't matter. They're twins.
I know they're twins. But
why are they dressed alike if not twins? That's the question.
Did anyone get my reference to that like early 2000s beer commercial where they say and twins? No. Listeners,
maybe somebody listening. Yeah,
Monica, I was
know
a
what I'm
child
talking
of
about.
God in the early 2000s.
I only know
never paid attention.
Twins, Spears, Gums reference.
Alcohol commercial.
I'm gonna tag in the
show
notes. In the show notes, I will be putting the YouTube video of this commercial. Continue on, Sydney.
Okay, but when we see the twins, and you can see in the background, this, I think it's supposed to be like a ski poster to the eye, but everybody's like, there's no skiing here. Why would there be a skiing poster? And that people say like it's a minotaur in the poster, right? And or like a cowboy riding a bull, like which represents a minotaur. There's like another poster next on the other side.
Is a bull.
So you have the twins that are like in the center, and to the left of them, there's this like fuzzy picture that maybe is skiing, but people are like a thing. And then to the right of the twins, it's a man riding a bull. And so people are like, Minotaur.
Oh, I thought you were going to be like Gemini, Taurus, astrology, which was going to lead me into my next thing. I'm so sorry. I know this is a long episode, but I have 2 more things that I want to talk about. I would say the final date of this film, I did my best to figure it out. I think it's roughly Wednesday, December 10th, 1980. I would love if we could look at the star chart and see like astrologically, was anything particularly spooky going on?
I will dig into that. Send me the date and what particular time do you think?
4 p.m. That's what it says in the film.
Oh, okay, good. I feel like 4 p.m. it wouldn't be that dark.
But like, is there?
It at least has to be like 5, because then it'll be pitch black in December.
Yeah, it said 4 p.m. a little earlier. IMDb trivia was like, that roughly makes sense given the time it would take Dick Halloran to travel from Florida, what he says when he gets in, blah, blah, blah. It says probably around 4:45-ish is when he would arrive.
That's
and it
dark.
Makes sense for it to be as dark as it is, also because they're in the mountains. So the sun might not have set yet, but it's behind the mountains.
Yes,
that makes sense.
It's
Send me that time. I'll run the chart.
Yeah. And we can share that on social.
Absolutely.
And my other thing that I wanted to share with you, I don't know if either of you guys have heard about this, but I found this article on slashfilm.com because I was trying to do a little bit research and I just Googled like The Shining Explained. And I found this article called The Shining Ending Explained, one of the most famous horror conclusions ever, deserves a fresh look. And it's like blah, 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 all these kinds of things. But it shared something that I had never heard of before in all of my cultural knowledge about The Shining. I like talked about this in a film class in college and I'd never heard this. It says that there was actually an additional final scene that was in the previews of like the first previews of this movie that was deleted after people like just didn't respond to it in the way that Kubrick wanted. But it says it takes place after the shot of Jack frozen and finds Wendy and Danny recovering from their traumatic experience in a hospital. It's got a picture, which seems to argue that it did really exist. And it has Stuart Ullman, the guy from the beginning, coming to visit them to let them know that there was no evidence of the supernatural found at the hotel. So the argument is, I guess, just that everyone else is giving them the information. Jack just went crazy, and they're the only people who know that it was something more than that. But also in that same final scene, Ullman tosses Danny the yellow tennis ball that Jack was throwing against the wall, and that like rolled up to Danny in that very spooky way.
Yeah.
That apparently took like 50 takes to get that scene right, despite the fact that it only took Catherine Hardwicke and Robert Pattinson like 13 takes to get the apple kick caught scene correct. Anyway, just had to get that little
Beautiful
Twilight
Easter egg.
It always comes back to Twilight. But yeah, the producer Jan Harlan apparently told Entertainment Weekly, the tennis ball is the same thing as the photograph. It's unexplainable. It makes Ullman now another ghost element. Was he the ghost from the very beginning? The film is complex enough because nothing is explained. When the film screened and wasn't received well, Warner's quite rightly suggested it's enough, just take the hospital scene out. So they did. But it's interesting that there was more originally, and there was like that extra kicker originally. I think it's stronger without it. But what do you guys think about that scene and like what it was trying to say and its possible inclusion?
I'm glad it wasn't in it.
I just had never even heard that before. You know what I mean? I think it's interesting. It's such an iconic
I like the idea of it, but like, yeah, like that ending is so like jarring the way that it goes, and it's just like having like an aftermath scene. Like I don't like. I feel like it would lose momentum.
Yeah, I like how it was done.
Yeah, the quote says it's the tennis ball is the same thing as the photograph. It doesn't mention that the photograph came in and like replaced this instead. So it kind of seems like it was like a both and you only need one. And the photograph I think makes the point a lot more clearly. To be like, well, what's going on? What's the question? You know what I mean? The tennis ball is like, it's spooky, but maybe there was a real tennis ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it like hits the mark that they were trying to hit.
And I don't give a shit about that guy.
So
you know, I don't care about that guy.
Who cares if he's a ghost?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could make an argument if you wanted to really make him the focal point of like, he's the real caretaker because he's bringing people to feed the hotel, maybe, but that's so not the point of the movie at all. You'd have to make a whole new movie to really support that being the ending scene.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I like the normal ending. Cool. I think that is really cool though. God, it's never ending with this movie. God.
That's what I like about that's why I like about this movie. Like, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. Like it, like you can have like, I watch this movie after I get home from like Christmas dinner with my family and I'm like back at my house. Like I watch this movie every Christmas. I don't know why. I think because it's snowy. I'm like, Christmas movie. No, but like I watch this movie at least once a year, sometimes more than once a year. And I always keep coming back to it because every single time I watch something, I see something different. Maybe I pay attention more to this scene, and I've been doing this since I was 17 every year at Christmas, and I do not have any answers to this movie.
Nope.
Any answers? Like
no
it
one
was
knows for sure.
I am 31 years old right now, and I just was like, maybe the hotel was possessing him, and then like that whole end where I'm like, maybe the hotel was letting him go. I just now had a realization about this watching it for this podcast.
Dude,
like came with a critical eye.
That never crossed my mind before. So that's why one of the things that I really like about this movie. And one thing that I find about this movie and just like horror in general is you get movies like The Shining where people, like a lot of people don't consider it to be a horror movie, but it 100% is. Mm-hmm. They'll label it as like a psychological thriller, which is how
psychological horror would be the correct term. Like, how is this a thriller?
Yeah, but like it's just like Silence of the Lambs, which is considered the only horror movie to win an Oscar. They label it something that isn't horror because they think horror is lowbrow. They don't think like,
Right
especially back in the day,
Yeah.
on.
horror is not, and so they don't want it to be horror. It then becomes a psychological thriller, a blah 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 blah. And I'm like, fuck no. This is a motherfucking horror movie. Horror movies are elite. They are highbrow.
It's truly the way that they don't
are.
even have like a category it makes sense to fit in at the Oscars. You know what I mean? Where like
No.
recently with Get Out, they were like, it's a dramatic or drama or comedy or whatever it was. It's like that makes literally no sense. But
No.
I guess where else are you gonna consider? I don't.
Because
Whatever.
a lot of people don't take horror movies seriously,
People are
especially
rude.
like, and they're wrong. They're so wrong. I
They're
want
so
a
wrong.
horror movie on the Oscars.
Yeah, and you know how much I
Immediately.
love all of the like elevated horror movies that have come out in the last like 5 years, that like new subgenre that people are calling like Hereditary, Midsummer.
That I don't like.
Yeah, the ones that you don't like. I love those, but like I don't think that we need to go like in the direction that those movies went to like give value to horror. It already
Mhm.
has value. You know, I don't like the term elevated horror or whatever.
Right? Like,
because
it's
just
just a horror movie.
no, it just sounds like pretentious. You know, it is
Yes.
pretentious. It just is pretentious. It's really frustrating because it's just like there's value in all these films, you know. And exploring fear, why is that not something valuable? I don't understand. That doesn't
Horror's
make any
about
sense.
trauma,
To me.
baby.
Yeah, seriously. But anyway, how could this movie be gayer?
Wendy's a she-they.
Yeah, fair.
Wendy's a she-they, and Wendy and Jack are a queer couple.
I definitely think Jack is a closeted bisexual because he would have made out with Grady.
You see those eyes they're making at each other?
I'm just saying, I felt the sexual tension. I don't know if he would have gone all the way, but he definitely wanted to kiss him.
We have a gay bear in this in this film, or a dog.
It's not
I
a bear,
guess.
it's a dog.
Okay, well, it looks like a bear to
Some
me.
puppy play, okay.
Jesus.
So
Furry representation.
we literally get a gay dick suck in this movie. So like,
Are you
That's
going
gay.
down
That's-
for a little
We
suck?
haven't had one before. That's
Yeah,
true. This is our first.
this is a first canonical gay dick suck. Unlike in The Thing, where that's just implied that that's what happens once the credits
Right.
roll. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Pretty gay.
It is pretty gay. And I'm sorry, but Danny also grows up to at least experiment
Yeah.
with other men.
I feel like Danny doesn't like labels. You know what I mean? Danny's like, I'm just
Um,
Danny.
Well, because
He already has a little boy that lives in his mouth, so
But here's the thing, if Danny has the shine and he can like just hear people's thoughts, I don't know exactly how it works because the movie doesn't explain it. If I saw a man that was like, that man's hot, I'd be like, hello, I'm here. I'm ready. Like,
yes, I
Go for-
am hot, and so are you.
yeah. Like, I would use that to my advantage.
This film's pretty gay. Love that.
Go.
Love that. Where's the gay? Why didn't Room 237 do anything about this? Seems like a
Yeah,
big
where's the gay
hole.
theory?
Yeah, seems like a big
Spooky
plot
Tuesday
hole in that
releasing-
fucking documentary.
Spooky Tuesday is
need
going to
more gay
release our
conspiracy
own
theories,
version
frankly.
of Room 237, but it's just gay conspiracy theory.
I love that for us.
I'm excited for us.
Okay,
Okay,
where could our king Maddie Lily be? I have a controversial place, but I think he could be one of the Grady twins. He was 10 years old.
Oh my god.
Could have been the 10-year-old Grady twin in
God.
1980.
I love that for him.
Perfect. He could do like a Lindsay Lohan kind of thing where it's him playing both of them, him in a wig playing both of them.
They make one digitally slightly shorter, or in one of them he's like wearing what do they
Heel,
put
like
in men's
lifts?
shoes? Yeah,
Lifts.
he's wearing lifts, so
Yeah,
that one's
he
a little
plays the
taller
Grady
than the other.
twins. I think that's the only place for him.
I don't want him anywhere else.
No, he
It's
has
a strong
to-
argument. It's a strong
There's
argument.
no
That's
other
where he
place for
goes.
him.
That is where he goes.
It's where
Yeah,
he
I won't entertain
belongs.
any other ideas. That's the one.
Who then is the dumb bitch?
It's obviously Jack.
I
He
mean,
called his life a cum dumpster.
He did.
Yeah.
And
But-
you can only be called a cum dumpster if it's a consensual thing.
Even then,
You could be called a cum dumpster if it was a consensual thing.
I will never be called that. The person who calls me that dies the same day.
Monica, I've called you that multiple times.
Don't. It's not nice.
Well, don't do it now. So I will have to fly through the screen. Fuck your shit up. I think the dumb bitch
Fuck
is
your life.
actually the person who decided to build the Overlook Hotel on a native burial ground.
Indian burial ground.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I think that
What
might
if the
be-
dumb bitch is actually the hotel itself?
That's actually a fair point. If the hotel is possessing them, then the hotel is also dumb bitch.
Right,
Like, why
like,
can't the
that's
hotel
just
just
not
let people have
nice.
fun? You know? Why does it have to play
Why
out
can't
its
we just have
traumas
sick
on everyone
1920s
else?
parties?
Like,
Yeah.
why does it want to murder a child? That's dumb bitch behavior.
Why can't it just have fun? What did the hotel do to that gay dog that was sucking a dick? Why is it dead and a ghost now? Why did it do that to them? Homophobic. It's a hate
I want
crime.
a gay dog backstory.
Tell
I
us
would
what
watch a
happened to
film.
the couple. We need their
Where are
story.
they?
I need to know.
I need to know. Why isn't that in room 237? It seems like they're avoiding anything that's remotely gay.
Wow,
A conspiracy theory to
suspicious.
ourselves.
Maybe
That's
there is some link to
homophobic,
this Holocaust
actually.
metaphor.
I have no idea what either of you said, but
Monica's like, I'm just gonna ignore both of you.
Sure.
no way to know.
Sure.
okay, fine. I mean, I feel like it's a tie between the hotel itself and Jack for dumb bitch.
I think movie Jack is definitely the dumb bitch. Book Jack is way more sympathetic,
Okay, fine. Movie Jack.
allegedly, because I haven't read
Movie
the book.
Jack
Yeah.
it
But
is.
from what I've read of the book,
Movie Jack is a bitch from day one.
From day one.
He is a dumb bitch for calling his wife a cum dumpster and being so mean all of the time. I would argue that I hesitate to call this dumb bitch behavior because I don't think it is sensitive. But I don't think that it is wise only 5 months into your sobriety to remove yourself from any possible social supports and isolate yourself somewhere. Granted, there is no alcohol there in the reality of what the hotel is if it weren't evil. But I also think if that is something that is still you're working to really get a hold of and have a grasp of, maybe be near your meetings or your sponsor or whoever it is that you rely on when you're struggling, and not go totally isolate yourself where you're just gonna spiral. But again, I don't think that's quite dumb bitch behavior because people need to cope in whatever way that they can deal with their addiction. But I would recommend he not. He makes a lot of questionable choices all around.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, well, I think that brings us to our knives out of fives then. And so I read somewhere that this wasn't that well received at first. Is that true?
It's a lot like The Thing in that it got like pretty much dragged when it came out, and then over time it got so much like critical acclaim and people loved it, and it's now considered one of the best horror movies of all time, a classic. But in 1981, the year after it came out, Stanley Kubrick was nominated for a Razzie for the worst detector, and Shelley Duvall was nominated for a Razzie for worst actress. Neither of
Fuck
them
that.
won, but they were nominated.
Assholes.
which
I just
is
don't
rude.
understand because just like on a basic level, like just like looking at this movie, it was fucking stunning. So you'd think it gets some points for that at the very least, but whatever. There's no accounting for the taste of the 1980s.
Where's the set design Oscar? Where's the cinematography Oscar?
Those
This
opening
Steadicam
shots,
footage, yeah, that was pioneered.
seriously, it was fucking stunning.
Trailblazing.
And it went on for a long time. So they spent a lot of money on that.
But yeah, it was not well received. That said, as of December 2021 on IMDb, it has an 8.4 out of 10 on IMDb. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it has 84% fresh from critics and a slightly higher 93% fresh from audiences. And also, this does not necessarily say one thing or another, but I think it's very cool that the actor who plays Dick Halloran is named Scatman Crothers. I think that's a great name.
I
and it
love
deserves
that.
recognition.
I love
It's an
that.
incredible name. Oh, I love him.
So
He got done dirty in the movie.
he should have lived. He should have lived.
And he does in the book.
Justice for Scatman Crothers.
Justice for Scatman Crothers. What a sexy king. Anyway, in terms of 9s out of 5s, I feel like obviously this movie is so iconic. Do I have strong opinions necessarily agreeing one way or another with like Stephen King saying there's no engine in this beautiful car and there was no logic put in? Like, I don't know how much Stanley Kubrick was like, there doesn't need to be answers, or if he was like, figure it out yourself. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to know what the intention was. That said, I do think while there are no answers within the film, we clearly had like enough of a discussion, enough thoughts based on information from the movie. We pieced a lot of it together with like context from the books, so that helped. But that said, I do think there's enough there for a hearty discussion. There is enough there for me to not just be like, it was made up with no logic or reason. Like, I think there were decisions and discussions, at least at points. And it's hard for me to say what I would have changed, if anything, other than I would like to take out the N-word because, again, serves literally no purpose. Literally no purpose.
Just to make us upset.
Yeah, just shocking, frankly. But other than that, I would say this movie is pretty incredible. Shelley Duvall does an amazing job. I'm so sorry it scarred her for life. I wish she could have been given the opportunity to deliver an amazing performance without it causing literal real damage to her. But she did amazing. She did amazing. And and she deserves a full 5 knives out of 5s no matter what. But I also kind of do think I would give the movie 5 knives.
Fuck yeah.
As it deserves, because this is a 5 out of 5 motherfucking movie. Wah, wah, wah. Air horns. Woo, woo, woo. Pew, 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 pew. I love this motherfucking movie. The acting, unhinged. Absolutely unhinged. The facial expressions from Jack Nicholson alone.
Those
unmatched,
eyebrows, man.
Unbeaten.
So fucked up. That look he gives after his nightmare. Oh my God.
Listen, just the memeability of him frozen in the snow. I'm just saying.
Incredible. They knew in 1980 that memes would be a thing and they were just waiting.
They
like, here's the thing. If you don't think that I already have some options for memes for our social media of this,
He said I would like to contribute.
I would like to contribute to the narrative, please and thank you. I would have liked a little bit more background, some more character building, but
sure,
I can let that go because I'm gonna read the book now.
Yeah. Okay, I'm fine. I was gonna give it less than a 5 out of 5, but who am I, Monica Haidt, to give this less than a 5 out of 5? I'm certainly not smart enough to point out why it would be less than a 5 out of 5, so we're just gonna give it the 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Yes,
I will
peer pressure.
I will say that I was very confused. I will say that I was very high for the last part of the movie as well, so that probably contributed to it.
Yeah, I don't know
as you should be.
But yeah, I mean, it was stunning. It was beautiful. Will I watch it again in my life? Of course. Will I still understand it? Of course not. And
I'm gonna bully you into watching this in a week on Christmas Eve and be like, you're gonna watch this so we can tweet about, so we can text about it.
I'm not gonna
so
fucking
you can
watch it
over
2 weeks
video.
from now.
All right, next Christmas.
Next Christmas.
No, this
next-
Christmas.
I need
this Christmas.
I need time to forget. I need
Nope.
time to forget. I don't have another 2 hours and 23 minutes to spare. Sorry.
Yes, you do.
Well, you can give it your best bullying attempt, Sydney. We'll see.
5 out of
I
5.
will.
5 out of 5. And that closes the book on The Shining.
Monica said
until
we have
I
to move on.
Hey, we're moving on. We're moving on because I'm so excited for what we're going to cover next week. I am so excited. Well, okay, I was going to say it's another movie where we're going in blind, but it's not because Sydney ended up watching this because
I've seen it.
I was talking about the trailer to this movie for so long.
5 years straight. Yeah.
Just for 1,000 years. And you know, I'm so excited to finally see it. I've hyped it up so much that I've probably ruined it for myself. But next week, we are traveling to 2001, and we are going to be covering the gorgeous, beautiful, incredible, potentially horrible film, Jason X.
So we have seen the first Friday the 13th movie. We have seen none of the other ones. We are immediately jumping to 10.
We're going straight to Jason X.
I feel like we probably don't need that context. It does take place in space. You know what I mean? Like, how much relevance can it really have to all of the other ones? I guess
We
we'll
are
find out.
blasting off, baby. We are ready. We are with Elon Musk and his space adventures. We are hitching that.
We're not
boat.
with Elon Musk and his space
You're saying-
adventures.
We are absolutely not with Elon Musk and his space adventures, but I feel like it was very on theme. I feel like Elon Musk would support Jason in his space adventures.
Elon Musk would support Jason because he's a
little
Jason's
bitch? Yeah.
monster.
Yeah, I mean, like, in case you've like never heard of Jason X, this is about like the future with
They
Jason
go to
being
space.
cryogenically frozen. And he is awoken from his cryo sleep to wreak havoc in space.
It's absolutely
Gorgeous.
incredible.
It's gonna be
I
probably the
assume.
stupidest thing I've ever seen, and I can not wait. Oh my god, the tagline is "Evil gets an upgrade." I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die.
Amazing.
I'm gonna die. All right, if you want to hear us die live, tune in next week. But yeah, it's it's New Year's. What's your New Year's resolution? My New Year's resolution is for you to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. I'm not picky. It just seems like a great way to start out. Or why not just like give love for the beginning of the year and just have love that entire year round. Just consider it. Also, why not follow us on social media at spooky_Tuesday on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We're also at Spooky Tuesday Pod on Tumblr and Facebook, and at Spooky Tuesday. I choked a little bit on Letterboxd. Happy New Year, Spookies. Thanks for
Is it my
listening.
turn? Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, Spooky.
Mr. Grady, you were the caretaker here.
I'm sorry to differ with you, sir. But you are the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker. I should know, sir. I've always been here.
Spooky Tuesday was created by Monica Height, Sydney Thompson, and Chelsea Duff, and edited by Sydney Thompson. Our gorgeously spooky tunes are all thanks to Tamara Simons, who you can follow on Instagram at Captain Tamara, and our podcast art is by Mary Murphy, who you can find on Instagram at the_moon_OMG.